engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious leaders, innovators, and people who are ready for the next level and beyond.
Welcome to 2015. From all of us at Pure Reinvention, we're so excited to be able to share with you just a small little snippet of all of the things we have planned for you based on our experience in a very successful 2014. 2014 was the year when a lot of the ideas for Pure Reinvention came together, and so what we decided to do was to kind of put an annual calendar together of potential speakers. And we were absolutely amazed at the number of people we already knew about that wanted to talk about Pure Reinvention, that in their own experiences could start sharing with you the types of things that we felt would be incredibly helpful. Now, you've got to remember that as this is an experience that's now really just beginning to emerge, we're having numerous people who are beginning to say, you know what, we've been doing some of our own reinvention and we'd like to share that with you. And that makes perfect sense because we want to build this community of individuals who are using Pure Reinvention as a resource, a group of people who are willing to share and learn from each other. And we just want to be the ones to be able to facilitate the understandings that are currently in place. In order to do that, we think it's going to be very important, and we are going to have, by the end of January, what we consider to be the structural foundation of Pure Reinvention. It will be our position paper. It will be that thing which we will be able to send to you that starts to outline the foundation of thought that allows you, as someone curious about reinvention, to start understanding the steps, at least to this point, that we have identified and feel very strongly are the types of areas you need to focus your attention on. Now, because this Pure Reinvention process is so new, we're beginning to discover that it has a lot of application in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. So, for example, if you're a board member, there is going to be a large amount of subject matter available from various different board perspectives. Interestingly enough, we're also beginning to discover that even within the board, there are different responsibilities that are happening where we have key board members versus just generalized board members. And obviously those responsibilities are different, and with that becomes an understanding of how you need to position certain people to be in certain roles depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But it isn't just about board members, because if you're an executive involved in reinvention at the CEO level, someone is really responsible for driving a lot of these things. And so their experiences at the top of their organizations, having made the decision to go through reinvention, whatever it took to get to that point, whatever they are thinking at that point then, as well as what they're thinking going forward, is critically important in being able to align all of these assets together. You know, the employees have a huge stake in the success of the association going forward because in many cases, if you're at the executive or board level, you tended to have had a little bit of experience or maybe even a lot of experience. So perhaps you're like some of us, a little bit older. But many of the association executives are a little younger, and they're looking forward to being in the association world for quite some time. And so for them, they have a very interesting and unique perspective about why their associations need to be relevant and dynamic and positioned to grow for the long term. And quite honestly, some of these employees are seeing some things that are not necessarily looking that way right now. And not a one of them has said it can't happen. It's just time to happen. And then finally, of course, the greatest value of all is if you're a member owner involved in owning and helping to direct the association, you're really the one that has the most vested experience of all. And as a member owner, for you to be aware of what the reinvention process looks like, for you to be aware of whether your association is going through it, to be aware of how it enhances the deliverables that the association is bringing to you is just absolutely outstanding. Again, I want to make sure I emphasize that what we are really trying to do here is share what we are learning. This is a community of ongoing learning. We call that graduated understanding. As we learn and as we grow, we see new things and different things that we didn't see because of where we were in our learning experience prior. So while we may be saying today, this is what we know, you have to also remember that we learn new things tomorrow. And as we learn new things tomorrow, it enhances our ability to then grow and change the perspective on Pure Reinvention. And that's the really cool part about Pure Reinvention is it's an ongoing, ever-changing, very dynamic process where from different perspectives and different reasons for implementing, you can have dramatically different outcomes based on the understanding of what we believe are the 5 key steps in reinvention. Well, how really did all this synthesize into where we are today and going into 2015 with a very exciting lineup of individuals willing to share their experiences, having the Michigan Society of Association and executives focus a portion of their Org Pro conference on Pure Reinvention, having ASAE 2015, the National Association being in the city of Detroit. How did all those factors come together? Well, let me tell you a little bit about how that did. I've spent 30 years, or actually more, in the not-for-profit sector. I started out as a frontline employee. I've graduated through numerous roles. I had an opportunity to actually guide a not-for-profit business through a very dramatic restructuring and growth phase, of which it has continued to grow at a very dramatic rate with a lot of the processes that were already in place. And then you combine that with a backdrop like the city of Detroit, a city which is every day going through its own reinvention. And all of a sudden you begin to see in this alignment, not only is there this experience and interest and knowledge base in the Pure Reinvention process, but you have an industry that is dramatically going through a reinvention need on an ongoing basis right now, and a city who's really embodying what reinvention is all about. Now, it's not always pretty, and it's not always exactly the way the book is written. But when you have the resiliency and the grittiness of what is characterizing Detroit right now, you know that Detroit is going to succeed. Just like you know that if an association has the kind of resiliency and can-do attitude that they want to get to the place where they are growing again, they can. And that's the purpose of this podcast. The purpose of this podcast is share with you what other individuals are doing, both successful, perhaps at times not as successful, but nevertheless a learning experience for those of you that choose to listen to it and those of you that choose to process that into how can you take that information and help make your association a stronger, more dynamic organization going forward. We want you to consider the city of Detroit for a great backdrop as a learning laboratory. We want you to remember we have a Facebook page. We want you to remember that we can always find us at www.purereinvention.com. Follow us on Twitter. But we're happy you are a part of our community, and we look forward to you, with you, growing in 2015 and beyond to something we really had never imagined. But we're really glad you're on this journey with us. Have a great 2015.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new episodes are available by following us on Twitter at PureReinvention or sign up for our mailing list at PureReinvention.com.